Hey fellow writers, welcome back to The Joy of Writing. Today we'll learn about ideas and how to turn them into a premise. By the end of this video, we'll have written a single sentence to describe our story's basic idea. There's this question that professional writers get asked a whole lot. I know I used to ask this question, and maybe you have too. The question is, where do you get your ideas? If you're lucky enough to meet one of those professional writers and you ask them this question, you'll probably be a bit disappointed with their response. See, writers don't really know where their ideas come from, so they tend to give an answer that will satisfy the person asking them. I keep an idea book, one might say, or another will say, I get inspiration from music, or my dreams, or another piece of writing. The truth is, the question itself is flawed. Writers don't get ideas, they recognize them. Everyone in the world is always thinking about things all the time. We imaginative types tend to daydream. We stare at the clouds and the stars and we make up scenarios while we take a shower. We lay awake at night imagining things that could never happen, but wouldn't it be awesome if they did? What separates a writer's thoughts from a normie's thoughts is the net, the filter, the object in your mind that looks at all these random thoughts and ideas and says, this is interesting, but there isn't much to this idea, or this one isn't good at all, or this one is boring and I'll forget about it by tonight. But then here comes one idea. It may not be a full idea, it might just be a simple image. The fantasy novel that I'm writing right now began with a single picture in my mind of a group of people sitting around a campfire in the dark woods. And in my mind they all looked exhausted and dirty. They were heading someplace or running from something, and I needed answers. And that's it. All of a sudden you'll have an idea that will catch and it'll take hold. And if you feed it and water it and give it some sun, it'll sprout and blossom into a story. Writers don't get ideas because they're always having ideas all the time. They're just good at recognizing when one of those ideas is worth developing. Now, I can't see into your head and you can't see into mine, so what we're going to do is try to come up with something together and see if we can't find one that's worth developing. So let's go over to this website here. You can find all sorts of idea generators online, but I really like this one. It can help you come up with character names, place names, descriptions, and a lot of other things. It has an idea generator, so let's try it out. And when you have an interesting idea or even that simple image that causes you to ask more questions about it, what you want to be able to do is write a sentence describing your story based on that idea called the premise. This is what you'll tell people when you say, hey, I'm writing a book, and they say, oh yeah, what's it about? Most writers panic at that question, and that's because their premise isn't strong enough. What we need is a character, a goal, and a conflict. In The Lord of the Rings, the premise would be something like a hobbit makes a long journey to destroy a magic ring before an evil dark lord takes over the world. Or in Harry Potter, it would be something like a young wizard must defeat a much more powerful and evil wizard before he becomes immortal. That one is a sentence for the whole Harry Potter series, but sometimes you have to start that way. Always start big with your premise. Always go for more vague rather than specific. And then we'll shrink our scope as we discover the details. In this stage, we don't need to know anything but the main character, their goal, and the main obstacle. Don't worry about names, setting, or plot points. For now, I'm going to use as an example the premise from the fantasy novel that I'm currently working on. The one I mentioned before that began with an image of people sitting around a campfire. The premise is this. The last man who can talk to animals must journey into a hostile, war-torn country to save his only friend before an evil prophet kills her. In this sentence, I have my main character, referred to only by a defining characteristic. He can talk to animals. Don't give your character a name in this stage. His goal is to rescue his friend, and if he doesn't, she will die, or at least he thinks she will. The obstacle is searching for his friend in a war-torn country, which will prove to be almost impossible. Now trust me, this gets absolutely nowhere near the whole story of my book. There are subplots, backstories, a dozen characters all with their own arcs, and the journey my character has to take to find his friend takes him years, and a whole lot happens in that time. But notice how I didn't mention any of that in my premise. And there we have it. We have a character, a goal, and an obstacle. Technically speaking, we could use this sentence and write a tiny one-sentence story right now with a beginning, a middle, and an ending. So your homework for this lesson is to come up with your premise. Make it short, simple, and vague. Post them down below in the comments and we'll use one for the next video, where we'll take your premise and fluff up some of the details into a short summary of your whole book. Thank you so much for joining us in this episode of The Joy of Writing. I hope to see you again next time, and until then, my friends, happy writing.